Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're heading back to the 80s to revisit a true classic, Clash of the Titans.
Ooh, this is a good one. A real landmark in fantasy cinema.
It really is. And we got a ton of listener mail about this one, particularly this one podcast that went super in depth, really fascinating stuff. So I'm really excited to dive into all that with you today.
Definitely. It's a film that, well, it's got so much going on beneath the surface. Like, yeah, it's a fun adventure, but there's some real depth to it, too.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't seen it recently or ever, we're talking Greek myths, gods, monsters, and one very brave demigod.
Right. Perseus, son of Zeus.
Sent on a quest by the gods to save Princess Andromeda from, well, basically becoming Kraken food.
The Kraken. We'll definitely have to talk about that. But yeah, classic hero's journey, right? Perseus has to overcome all these obstacles, proving self-worthy.
Exactly. But it's not just your typical good versus evil story, is it? Like, even the gods themselves are kind of morally ambiguous.
Totally. The film does a really interesting job of portraying them, especially Zeus and Hades.
Hmm.
I mean, they're not just these one-dimensional figures. They've got complexities.
Yeah, like you really get a sense of their personalities and motivations, particularly Hades. He's got this real resentment.
Oh, yeah. Totally justified in a way.
Yeah.
Think about it. When the cosmos was divided, Zeus gets the sky, Poseidon gets the seas, and what does Hades get? Stuck with the underworld. Not exactly a fun gig.
It's kind of like getting stuck with the worst chore forever.
Right. So, yeah, his anger kind of makes sense, even though, obviously, trying to overthrow Zeus and unleash the Kraken is probably not the best way to deal with it.
Yeah, maybe a strongly worded letter would have been better.
Right. But it makes him a more compelling villain, that's for sure. Someone you can, I don't know, at least kind of understand.
It adds a whole other layer to the conflict, makes you think about justice and, who really holds the power in these mythological hierarchies. But you know what always steals the show for me? The monsters.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion animation, it just never gets old.
It's timeless. Even with all the CGI we have now, there's something about those stop-motion creatures so tactile, almost like you could reach out and touch them.
Totally. Like Medusa. Just thinking about that snake hair and that stare.
So iconic.
Yeah.
Just terrifying and mesmerizing at the same time.
And then, of course, there's the Kraken. That design, part squid, part giant lobster, emerging from the depths to wreak havoc. Pure genius.
And that sense of scale, right? He just towers over everything. And the way Harryhausen animates him, those slow, deliberate movements, really gives you a sense of this immense, unstoppable power.
It's like watching a force of nature come to life.
Exactly. And it's all done with, physical models frame by frame. The amount of work and artistry involved is just mind-blowing.
And Clash of the Titans was one of the last big films to really showcase that kind of stop motion, wasn't it? Before CGI kind of took over.
Yeah, it was kind of the end of an era. But Harryhausen's legacy, I mean, it lives on. You see his influence in so many films even today.
Speaking of legacy, let's talk about our hero, Perseus. He's not your typical, super confident, muscle-bound hero, is he?
No, not at all. He's more, I don't know, relatable. He's a reluctant hero kind of thrown into this extraordinary situation, and he definitely has his doubts and fears.
You can really feel his vulnerability. It makes his eventual triumph even more meaningful, I think, because you're rooting for him to, overcome those fears and rise to the challenge.
Definitely. And he doesn't do it alone either. The supporting cast is great. Andromeda, the princess he's trying to save, she's no damsel in stress. She's strong, resourceful, and ultimately plays a key role in defeating the Kraken.
Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
And then there's Ammon, the wise old mentor. He guides Perseus along the way, kind of helps him unlock his potential. So, it's very much a team effort.
You see that theme of teamwork and collaboration a lot in these kinds of stories.
It speaks to that idea that, well, even a demigod, the son of Zeus, still needs the support of others to face his challenges. It's something we can all relate to, right? That need for connection and belonging, the importance of having allies on our own journeys.
I love that. It really resonates. Okay, so thinking about someone watching Clash of the Titans for the first time today, I mean, the special effects, as groundbreaking as they were back then, they might look a little dated to modernize. Do you think that takes away from the film's impact at all?
That's a really interesting question. I think it really depends on the viewer. Some people, they might be distracted by the older effects, but others, they might find it adds to the film's charm.
Like it's almost like a window into another time, another way of filmmaking.
Exactly. And even if the technology feels outdated, the storytelling, the characters, the themes, that stuff's timeless.
It's true. And, speaking of behind the scenes stuff, that podcast we got had some great trivia. Apparently, Laurence Olivier, who played Zeus, he had a really hard time keeping a straight face while acting opposite those stop motion creatures and green screens.
Oh, I can imagine. It must have
Hmm.
been so hard to like stay in character when you've got these, fantastical beings wobbling around in front of you.
And we can't forget Bubo.
The mechanical owl.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Some of the filmmakers weren't even sure about including him in the first place, but he ended up becoming this huge fan
You've
favorite.
got that like cheesy 80s charm, right?
Yes.
And a little bit of comic relief, which I think works well in contrast to the more serious tone of the film.
Maybe it's that contrast that makes him so appealing. But before we get too sidetracked by owls, let's get back to the heart of the movie. Like, what are the core themes that make Clash of the Titans resonate with audiences even today?
Well, I think at its core, it's a story about facing your fears, overcoming obstacles and ultimately choosing your own destiny. Perseus could have easily given up, just, succumbed to all the doubt and despair, but he chooses to fight. He forges his own path.
And he's doing it all while navigating the whims of the gods
Right.
and the complexities of fate. I feel like that's a pretty universal human experience.
Absolutely. We all face challenges, moments where we feel powerless against forces beyond our control. Clash of the Titans reminds us that even in those moments, even when the odds seem impossible, we still have a choice. We can choose how we respond, we can fight for what we believe in, and we can shape our own destinies.
It's a powerful message, and the way it's delivered through this visually stunning, action-packed adventure makes it all the more engaging.
Exactly. It's a film that manages to, like, entertain and inspire at the same time. And that's rare.
It really is. Clash of the Titans is a film that stays with you long after you've seen it. It sparks your imagination, challenges you to think about those big questions, and ultimately leaves you feeling a little bit more empowered to face your own Kraken, whatever form it may take in your life.
Well said. And it does that, with this real sincerity. A sincerity that I think sometimes you just don't see as much in modern fantasy films. There's just this sense of wonder in Clash of the Titans, this belief in the power of these myths. You can just feel it.
I totally agree. You can just feel the passion that went into creating this whole world, even with like the limitations they had back then. It's like it makes you realize that sometimes the best special effects aren't the ones that are just big and flashy. They're the ones that spark your imagination.
Right. Like it's not just about the spectacle. It's about what those images, those creatures make you feel.
And speaking of the creatures, like each one of them is so unique and memorable, but they're not just there for the sake of being cool looking monsters, are they?
Oh, definitely not. They each represent like different aspects of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Take Medusa, for example, her deadly gaze. It embodies, well, it's like a representation of fear, right? And the consequences of unchecked curiosity. You look, you die.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. And the Kraken, rising from the depths, demanding a sacrifice. It's like it speaks to this primal fear of the unknown, these forces that are just beyond our control.
Exactly. So they're not just there to provide action and thrills, although they do that very well. But there's this deeper layer of meaning there. It's what elevates the film beyond, your typical monster movie.
It's like you're watching this epic adventure, but it also makes you think. You're left with these questions about human nature and the things that scare us.
It adds that psychological depth.
Yeah.
Something I found really interesting was this detail from the podcast we were talking about the Kraken.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out that the Kraken was actually designed as like a hybrid, a squid and a giant lobster.
Wow. Really? That's kind of a strange combination.
It is, isn't it? But it just works. It speaks to, I think, Harryhausen's genius. That ability to blend something familiar like a squid or a lobster with something completely fantastical. And he ends up creating something totally new, something monstrous, but also oddly believable.
Yeah, it's like he tapped into this like collective unconscious, our primal fears about these creatures of the deep, but then he twisted those fears into something truly terrifying and unique. And it's not just the design, it's the way he animates it too. Those slow, deliberate movements, that sense of immense power. It's like watching a force of nature.
And that's where the stop motion really excels, right? Because
Wow.
it's so tactile, so grounded in the physical world. It just lends this believability to these fantastical creatures. Like you can almost feel the impact of their movements, the sheer force of their presence.
And that's probably why people still talk about these creatures today, decades later. They've become iconic. They've like transcended the film itself and entered into this whole realm of pop culture legend.
It really is a testament to the enduring power of practical effects, too. Even though CGI has come so far, there's still something magical about seeing these creations brought to life through like pure artistry and craftsmanship.
It's like those effects, they have a soul,
Mm.
a personality that you don't always get with computer-generated imagery. They feel handcrafted, like imbued with the passion of the artists who made them. And speaking of artists, the podcast mentions some behind-the-scenes disagreements about including Bubo.
The mechanical owl.
Yeah. Why do you think he's become such a fan favorite?
It's funny, isn't it? Bubo could have easily been this like throwaway character, just a bit of comic relief that gets lost in this grand epic story.
Yeah.
But he's managed to, I don't know, capture the hearts of so many fans.
You know what I think it is? It's the contrast
Yeah.
between his like almost comical design and the epic serious tone of everything else. It's like he's this little reminder that even in the midst of, great danger and these high stakes, there's still room for a little whimsy, a little bit of lightheartedness.
I like that. He represents a kind of innocence, that childlike wonder that I think maybe we all still yearn for, even when we're dealing with like, the more serious stuff in life.
And honestly, he's just adorable. Those big eyes, that clumsy way of flitting about.
He definitely brings some humor and warmth to a story that, could otherwise feel pretty intense. It's a good balance.
It is. And that kind of brings us to, I think, the heart of what makes Clash of the Titans so enduring. It's not just about the monsters and the special effects. It's about these, like, timeless human themes. Courage, sacrifice, the struggle to find our place in the world.
Exactly. It's about facing our fears, overcoming adversity, and ultimately, choosing our own destiny, even when the odds seem completely stacked against us. And those are themes that just resonate with people, no matter like what generation you're from, whether you grew up with stop motion or, the latest CGI.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the best way to explore those universal themes is through stories that take us to these other worlds, worlds filled with myth and magic and wonder.
Worlds where we can confront our deepest fears, but then emerge stronger, braver, and more connected to like our shared humanity. I love that idea.
It's beautiful. But I think Clash of the Titans also taps into something specific about our, I don't know, our fascination with Greek mythology in particular. Why do you think these stories, why do they continue to captivate us even centuries after they were first told?
Wow, that's a question that, scholars and philosophers have been trying to answer for ages. That something about those ancient myths, the gods and the monsters and the heroes, they just speak to something deep within us, our desires, our fears.
Maybe it's because they provide this, framework for understanding the world, even in our, modern technologically advanced age.
It's possible. They offer these explanations for natural phenomena. They explore the complexities of human relationships, and they grapple with those big, existential questions, the meaning of life, the nature of good and evil, the power of fate.
And they do it in a way that's entertaining and thought-provoking at the same time.
You can enjoy them on so many different levels.
Exactly. And Clash of the Titans, by tapping into these timeless myths, it inherits all that richness and complexity. It's a film that you can enjoy as, just pure escapism. But there's also that gateway into something deeper, something that continues to resonate with us.
And it reminds us that the stories we tell, the myths we embrace, they really can shape the way we understand the world and our place in it.
And sometimes those stories, they can even inspire us, right? To be a little braver, a little more compassionate, a little more connected to the whole scope of human experience.
And Clash of the Titans, I think, despite all the fantasy and special effects, it ultimately reminds us that the most important battles, they're the ones we fight within ourselves. The battles against our own fears and doubts. The battles to become, the heroes of our own stories.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like a film that came out over 40 years ago and it still feels so relevant today. I think that says a lot about the power of, good storytelling.
Oh, for sure. Clash of the Titans, it just has that perfect mix of like action and adventure and heart and even a little bit of humor. Works on so many levels. Appeals to like the kid in all of us, but it's also got some real depth to it.
Totally. And it doesn't leave you feeling, I don't know, bummed out. It's not all doom and gloom. You actually leave feeling kind of hopeful. Like even when things seem impossible, courage and determination, they can actually win the day.
Yeah, it's inspiring, right? It's a little reminder that we all have that potential for heroism within us. Maybe not, slaying mythical beasts, but in our own lives and the choices we make, the challenges we face, it's about that inner strength.
Oh, I love that. It's not about having superpowers. It's about having the courage to face your fears and fight for what you believe in. Okay, before we wrap things up, I've got one last question for you. If you had to pick one scene from Clash of the Titans that like perfectly captures the magic of the film, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There are so many great scenes, but I think I'd have to go with Perseus's confrontation with Medusa.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It's just, I don't know, it's such a masterclass in suspense and like visual storytelling. The way Harryhausen builds the tension as Perseus is making his way through that chamber full of statues, the lighting, the shadows, it's brilliant.
And then the way Medusa's revealed. So terrifying, but also like you can't look away.
Right. The way she moves, that look in her eyes, pure malice. It's a scene that's both, terrifying, but also you're completely captivated.
And it makes you think too. It's like sometimes the most frightening monsters are the ones that we create in our own minds, you know?
Mm.
Our fears, our doubts, the things that hold us back from really living our lives to the fullest.
That's a great point. It really is.
Well, everyone, that about wraps up our deep dive into Clash of the Titans. We've explored its mythological roots, we've marveled at the special effects, and we've, really dug into the characters and themes that make it such a classic.
It's a film that, continues to entertain, to inspire, and to challenge audiences even today. Proof that sometimes the oldest stories, they're the ones that stay with us the longest.
And before we let you go, we want to leave you with something to think about. What other classic films, maybe ones you watched as a kid, still have that same power to like transport you? What is it about those films that makes them timeless? Hit us up on social media, let us know.
Because, the real magic of movies, it's not just about the technology or the special effects. It's about the stories, the emotions, the connections that we make through, the power of film. So until next time, happy watching.